Welcome everybody to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, ADHD Attention Coach Jeff Copper. Today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I want to share some quotes and relate them to ADHD that are some of my favorites and some that you, our followers, actually have provided. So let's get into this. Let's have some fun here. One person quoted on our channel on I think it was a show relating dopamine and motivation. I simply won't get the same dopamine boost from reading a textbook as I do from playing online games or watching YouTube videos. So I'm going to pick the latter every time. I'm not as motivated by having a reward at the end as I am by having a reward built into every moment of the activity. That's ADD. Like the definition of it. It's sobering. The person who wrote this clearly had a lot of self-awareness and a realization kind of what's going on, but that's the trick. Get a lot of people who call me up and they want some coaching and their thought process is just to try harder. And it's kind of like, if you got those temptations, it's really hard to override that. As I said, I'd rather have dopamine built into every moment of that activity instead of the end. So this is one of the challenges of ADHD and one of the reasons why we need to be enlightened, because it's not a simple thing to manage. Another quote is, I'm a chronic researcher and over-prepare. It's the main way of procrastination while appearing productive. This was in response to a video that I did out there talking about people with ADHD, they struggle with self-regulation. And we know dopamine is a really important neurotransmitter. It's the reason we procreate. It's the reason we're attracted to the opposite sex and we get intimate. It's the reason we forage for information. It's the reason we come out from the cold or we come in from the heat. We're drawn to pleasurable activities. And I made the observation that I've coached a lot of people that have learning addictions. They jump on the internet at 9 o'clock at night. Before you know it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Time has flown by. I've actually had people come to me that had like 3 master's degrees, certified in every yoga form of yoga as an instructor, ballroom dance, etc., but they haven't held a job for more than 90 days. The point of there really is to help them understand that you like to learn. Maybe you should look for a job where learning is kind of built into it. And so there are a lot of people with ADHD because we're taught that learning is a good thing, and it is, unless it's kind of addictive. In which case you're doing a lot of taking the next class or doing the next thing to give yourself the illusion that you're kind of going forward. So it's a little bit of a sobering thought, but I'm sharing it with you because some of you have some learning addictions. And if you're not managing it properly, it's a challenge. So again, I love that quote because I thought it's real insightful. Let's see. Next, a Dr. Russell Barkley quote. A good chunk of what you and I do is helping convince people to buy into this. This is an interview that I did with Dr. Barkley on motivation, and ADHD is not for sissies. And often we need people to buy into what's happening to really own this, to kind of go forward, which leads into the next quote. If you're telling me you don't want treatment for ADHD, you'd better know what you're asking for. This was a quote that he made when we were doing a show talking about life expectancy. We have research that, strong research, that suggests the life expectancy of people with ADHD is 8 to 20 years less than the general population. That doesn't mean that you're doomed to this, because you can do something about it. The point of it is, of the 14 things that they measured, 5 of them you can't do anything about, like intelligence, but the other 9 are related to self-regulation, which is a cornerstone of ADHD, which goes back to, we do a lot of talking people into, like, you need to own this and get serious about it, because if not, it could be really a bit of a challenge. A sobering quote, but one I like. He also said, society has eliminated the obstacles that have helped our self-control, and it places people who are weak in self-control in a way disadvantaged position, because they're the ones who are going to suffer more than the people who have really good self-regulation. The point really is in the old days, we had books and newspapers. There's no hyperlinks to take you anywhere else. Now those barriers have been removed. You also have your you just click on Amazon, buy. You don't have to go to the bank to get the money, which is an obstacle. Maybe you want to do that money. So it's getting more difficult because those barriers are being removed, and it's more difficult for people with ADHD. Another one that I like, Rick Green. Many ADHDers are poor at self-observation, which they find surprising because they're poor at self-observation. We've done some other videos on this talking about self-awareness is an executive functioning, but managing your emotion is also an executive functioning. And often to be self-aware, you've got to call yourself out, which is threatening, which is why you resist. So you've got like one executive function that's getting in the way of another one that kind of helps you go forward. It's ADHD. Let's see. Oh, this is one of my favorite. ADHD is like a erectile dysfunction. If you're not interested, you can't do your business. That was a quote from Dr. Thomas Brown. He got that from a patient of his or a client of his many years ago. If you're not excited, you can't do your business. Another sobering one. Dopamine, the molecule of more, like that. Another one of my favorite quotes is actually by Tony Robbins. I'm typically not a Tony Robbins fan, which I shouldn't probably say, but there are some people, it isn't the story. They just don't have the right strategy. And he says, and I love this, they're running east looking for a sunset. That happens so much in the ADD world. People are running in a direction looking for the answer, and it's actually in the rear view mirror. Often I find people just want the simple trick. And I think I've said this before. There's a lot of tips and strategies out there. You know, if there was just one, there'd just be one book. But usually those things only work for a very small portion of the population, usually the person that wrote the book. So it's kind of like sometimes you got to learn more and own what's kind of going on, because ADHD is kind of dynamic. Anyway, moving forward. Again, these are just quotes that I thought were kind of fun, that were really ADD, validating some things, kind of sobering you a little bit as to what this is really kind of all about, maybe kind of get your attention a little bit. But I find them fascinating and useful because they're very articulate and they help summarize the ADHD. If you're new to our channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you're existing follower and this is one of your quotes, let me know. If you got another quote, certainly put that in there. So love this type of stuff. Also, for those that want to support what we do, please hit the thanks button. We'd certainly appreciate that. So with that, we hope you've enjoyed this edition of Attention Talk Video. Take care.